For many islands lost in the Atlantic Ocean, the trade winds are not just roaming mists. They are nomads that eventually unload the humidity they have loaded along their long journey to the south. The sap that renews centenary woodlands, that nourishes a privileged climate and landscapes of contrasts. In the highest of all, there is a different pulse, the pulse of snow-covered peaks that vanish among spring-woven cloaks. A multicolour beauty, subdued by endless summers. Prostrated before the feet of a titan, once furious with a breath of sulphur. Tenerife is the highest and largest of the Canary Islands. It occupies a central position, halfway between east and west. Something similar happens with its age. About 10 million years old, it has stopped growing like the young islands still do, and hasn't succumbed yet to the decay that dismantles the old ones. It is in the prime of life. It has matured to host the best collection of insular ecosystems and accumulate absolute maximums in biodiversity. Its northern slope hoards the most exuberant side, thanks to the humidity tirelessly injected by the Azores anticyclone. In the contact zone, vegetation gets to its climax, displaying the best attributes of a subtropical forest. Forgotten by the volcanoes, the ancient Anaga and Teno massifs have remained shelters of amazing nature. The last bastions for plants as singular as the Crestus de gallo. This endemism comes from continental ancestors, perhaps pollinated by extinct hummingbirds. The design of its flowers attracts opportunistic passerines, a solution that is chemical rather than physical. Plants synthesize hexose, a nectar of simple structure, a favorite of the birds. As it takes on fuel, the chiffchaff brushes its feathers over the stamens and carries tiny grains of pollen to other plants. Flies detect small syrup pearls that drip from flowers shaken by the breeze. During the night, when birds never visit them, previously unknown bonds can be discovered. This moth of the genus Noctua is a nocturnal looter that can get to the deepest of the flower by unwinding its long proboscis. In the middle of the thermophilous laurel forest, the Canary madrone's ripe fruits are the messengers of the impending autumn. A visual gift amidst sombre landscapes, and a joy for residents and visitors from the suburbs, like the Canaries. Perhaps it is not a fortuitous encounter. Maybe the usual resources are scarce, making seasonal migration and a change of diet a must for insectivores like the blue tit. Even radical granivores like the chaffinch sink their beak in this hard-to-get exquisite pulp. The higuereta is a very ancient endemism to Tenerife. Its late flowering may respond to the need to eliminate competition and guarantee the visit of those who help its difficult natural propagation. Far from the permanent influence of the trade winds and up to the sea level, the xerophytic scrub grows. It is like a desert. It rains very little, and all together in a few days. Success lies in storing as much water as possible, in trunks and branches, in as little time as possible. Today there are only redoubts of this peculiar foliage. They are islands lost within islands, complex and different. The largest coverage and diversity of vegetable species is found in old lands and in high altitudes. Ants tactfully scratch the sweet varnish that covers the Canary candelabra spurges. It takes almost 2 years for the Canary candelabra spurge longicorn to complete its biological cycle, something close to the gestation period of an elephant. And all to live as an adult long enough to reproduce. Its slim and shiny trunks are fine watchtowers for the male spectacled warbler to delimit its domains. Its extension will depend upon the abundance of small prey, and now it has plenty from where to choose. So much that it could raise a second brood. In August and September, the gallo, a bush endemic to the Canary Islands, hoards the water caught with its strong tangle of roots in uncountable bunches. Even if the ground hasn't seen a drop in months, its turgid fruits seem about to burst. The thirst that the Canary lizards suffer is the guarantee that its seeds will be spread at some distance. The Canary Island pine forest spreads like a crown, surrounding the Tenerife peaks with over 30,000 hectares of woods. Looking to leeward, the woodlands stand out with their robust trees on an almost bare ground. Dryness doesn't allow much else. These almost bare mountainsides hoard a real treasure, the Pico Paloma, also known as Yerba de Plata. A beautiful creeping legume plant in serious danger of extinction. The only southern population has about 20 specimens, all clones of the last known wild specimen. This pine forest has its own woodpecker, the great spotted. Birds that have appreciably improved their insular distribution thanks to the clearing of more dense pine forests that strangled natural expansion. To windward, caressed by fresh mists, the Canary Island pine forest rests upon the laurel forest, climbing positions to an altitude of 2,000 meters. The blue chaffinch is not concerned with the origin of all these trunks. Inner structure is what is important. In areas with escobones and sticky broom undergrowth, the number of birds increases. Their reproductive calendar is so late that many chicks leave the nest well into the summer. In an atmosphere that at times becomes stifling, they need water, which is scarce in the pine forest. Now they change the usual woodland for a neighbour, where pines disappear in the shade of fallas, small-leaved hollies and tree heaths. It is the boundary between two worlds covered by mist, where the vigour of diversity is at its peak, the mixed Canary Island pine forest. In the buzzard's nest, disguised among bearded pines, chicks receive a long-awaited visit. Their thick feather cloak allows them to stay alone while their parents are looking for new prey. The woodcock, almost invisible among the laurel forest's fallen leaves, also goes unnoticed while it incubates surrounded by the acicular leaves. Blue chaffinches find here the water they were looking for. It is the only moment to meet neighbours like the chaffinch and other fowl of the laurel forest. As the heat mitigates, a male sparrowhawk remains alert to promising surroundings with plenty of birds. The border of the Tenerife pine forests is also marked by an extreme climate that ruins any aspiration to climb any further. Trees are scattered to eventually disappear in an ocean of lava where Teide bursts in, breathing drowsily at an altitude of almost 4,000 meters. It was the volcanic stratum that marked the decay of constructive phases and landslides that began 3 million years before. The old spine of the island, the central shield, was buried under a thick rocky layer, rejuvenated by recent eruptions. One of the many traces of that disaster was filled by tongues of lava that slid downhill. Scalded wrinkles that hoard 17 kilometers of beautiful caves and winding tubes. The lava tubes of Cueva del Viento, El Sobrado, is one of the largest and most fascinating volcanic labyrinths in the world. A collection of geological jewels frozen in time, embellished by tiny masterpieces with chitin plating. Over 100 invertebrate species, and some can only be found here. They have suffered the forces of change, compounded formulas that help save metabolic consumption when one has to make do with few resources. Losing color or even eyes are part of that inevitable policy for survival. This Trichosera mosquito larva moves like a skillful tightrope walker, alerted by the vibrations of a prey stuck to its web. As the peaks show off a second youth, the remote massifs of Teno and Anaga get old without the vigor of new volcanoes. Teno is simply one of those places on the border of magic, a spectacular fortress of biodiversity. Working miracles to avoid disappearing, 10 out of the 12 counted pairs of Tenerife ravens live here. In this corner of narrow ledges and sky-high stacks, there are still a few hundred Canarian spotted lizards. And this is not their only refuge. Further south, almost 1 million survive, entrenched behind lime and boulder in a rocky outcrop set between tourist resorts. From these walls, battered by the waves, some silhouettes cut out over the sea have always seemed familiar. It is the short-finned pilot whales. Marine mammals that maintain a resident population of a few hundred specimens, organized in small groups that include several females and their offspring. It is the basic, functioning cell of a matriarchal society, composed of animals closely related and united for life. Even if females can give birth to no more than 7 or 8 offspring in their lifetime, their role doesn't diminish when they lose their fertility. They breastfeed offspring that are not theirs, sometimes until they reach the age of 8. Their life experience will become an important asset for the survival of the group. While adult males invest almost half an hour in reaching ladders 1,000 meters deep and then come back to the surface, females take care of the young in floating Being born in such a hostile world entails great risks, and some don't make it. It is a sad situation for the females, but this male also seems to suffer the loss of a baby. He will remain by its side for several days, hoping it might breathe again. It is his own flesh and blood. From the coast to the midsection, the insular climate is very particular. The ocean softens the summer and the winter as well. It is the predictable part of an oceanic island. The high mountain has a different set of rules. It is a succession of periods where contrast is in the air. A continent in the roofs of the island. Here, the trade winds are fugitives that shyly appear to later vanish in the rocks and sand, tortured by the cold and the heat. Compressed by layers of warm air, the sea of clouds gets stuck at 2,000 meters high, leaving the peaks at the mercy of other currents. Atlantic squalls will bring rains that are never plentiful. After all, this is just a high desert. With the blizzard, temperatures drop. Raindrops soon fall as snowflakes. The glacial breath that freezes everything at a blow. Where exodus is a luxury reserved for those that can fly. Prisoners of hard icicles, the bushes will endure their captivity for as long as the winter wishes. Some may not make it, or may end up too weak, which would leave them at the mercy of insects and diseases. The final balance is what counts. Even if battered, the vegetation survives. In the dying winter, a jar of scents and buzzing is opened, a chain reaction called spring. The new color palette leaves no signs of charcoal or lava. The beauty of the humble Teide violet seems to be shinier next to the barren soil on which it grows, where just the Teide campion can be its match. The rare Cardos de Plata pledged everything to their roots, and now they are reborn to endure for decades the pains of this native fly. Armed with a solid sting, the female drills the vegetable tissue of florets that have taken years to bloom. It is a simple plan, to lay their eggs so that their ravenous larvae will devour the seeds. They are links between animals and endemic plants, the elite of evolution, but no more than lost fibers in the bundle of possibilities that the Tenerife high mountain offers. The rough home of more than 1,000 invertebrate species, almost half of them being exclusive. The retama del Teide is the vegetable symbol par excellence. It comes with an entourage of stunted plants and hairy leaves. They are forceful evolutionary solutions to fight the roughness of an extreme dryness, high insolation, and huge thermal changes between day and night. One-third of species are endemic, some with a wide distribution, like the Rosalito de Cumbre, associated to grounds with rocky outcrops and high contents of nitrogen. While the larvae of this bee fly parasitize other insects, adults suck the deeply hidden nectar of its flowers. In a paradise that lasts for just a few weeks, everyone can find its match in two large groups. Plant species with localized populations rub shoulders with a collection of animals of less noble birth, while common plants are pollinated by distinguished visitors. The red bugloss prefers beds created by the thaw coming from the walls of Las Cañadas. To spread its long spike of flowers implies enduring 2 summers with their 2 winters. Many don't make it. This vermilion spectacle, with a height of 2 meters, attracts a mixed audience. Canaries are not frequent in the high mountain, but the energy hidden in hundreds of flowers more than compensates the expense of reaching these distant buglosses. Lizards are also attracted and easily climb to obtain their sweet reward. They are a different subspecies from the Canary lizards from the North Tenerife coast. They are a bit smaller, and males proudly display big blue spots. Auber blue buglosses, with flowers that look like the sky, only a bit less uninspiring, now display their full splendor. And there is still room for a shilly-shally variety, a hybrid of red and blue. The southern grey shrike keeps an isolated bastion, where it can nest later than the rest of the insular population. Haste is of no use. Lizards and insects, their main provisions, have been numb until the sun warmed up their blood. Now they can move, although many will find a retama stick between their chest and their back. Another simple step in the staircase of life. Each bond hides a reason, a function, sometimes yet to be discovered. To protect an ecosystem is to guarantee that all its pieces mesh in the right place. Even air, water and soil move this clockwork mechanism, where nothing is superfluous and no one is unnecessary. The high mountain is just a part of Tenerife, an island of great extension, but also deeply transformed. Many natural habitats have been reduced to distant, unconnected, and seriously endangered fragments. a fortress that hides a fascinating biodiversity that should be preserved.